All right, hey everyone, welcome to our third workshop of the day. I hope everyone's doing well. Hope that everyone's getting well adjusted to the return to in-person lectures. So for this workshop, we have Samantha Fallahi from CS Hub joining us, and she'll be going over an introduction to Fusion 360. So please everyone welcome Samantha. How are you, Samantha?
Hello, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. So for those of us who are not familiar with Fusion 360, could you give us a quick rundown of what it is?
Yep. So Fusion 360 is just a cloud-based 3D modeling software. So if you're familiar with Blender or Maya, all those other cool 3D modeling softwares that people use to just render, then that's basically Fusion 360.
Awesome. That sounds really interesting. All right, so if you guys have any questions, please drop them in the chat, and then Samantha will answer them. All right, well, without further ado, the stage is yours, Samantha.
All right, cool beans. Thank you. So let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, there we are. So we'll just start with a little slideshow before we get into all of the fun stuff. So hello, my name is Samantha. I am the media director at CS Hub, and today we are doing Intro to Fusion 360. So I already went into a little explanation of what Fusion 360 is, but for some of you, you might not know the difference between Fusion 360 and other ones. Like, why are we using this one? What is the difference? Why should we use this over others? So what is Fusion 360? So, whoopsies. So Fusion 360, like I said before, it is a cloud-based 3D modeling software. So let's say you wanted to switch between devices. You can go, well, you know already how cloud works. So you do something on one computer, you go to another, you sign into your account, you get that, boom, everything's good. So why Fusion 360? So Fusion 360, not many people are familiar with it over other better softwares like Blender or SolidWorks. And why some people might choose Fusion 360 is while Blender has a lot of cool stuff that you can do. You can create like whole characters, animations, all that stuff. Fusion 360 is more industrial based. Like you might use it for actually making CNC machine parts or making the paths in order to do that instead of coding it yourself. G-code, not fun. Trust me, I've done it. You can do stress testing simulations. So if you were to make like a robot chassis or something along those lines that has multiple parts working with each other, and you don't know how they work and you don't want to make it before actually knowing what it's going to do, it might fall apart. You can use Fusion 360 to test it and make sure that it will actually work before putting everything together and saving you a bunch of money and time. It also has an easy interface and it's pretty easy to learn compared to Blender and SolidWorks, which might be a little more intimidating to the new person. So first, what we are going to do is we're going to learn the basics. So in order to, oh, whoopsies, thank you. So in order to actually work Fusion 360, you need to know what you're doing in Fusion 360. So the basics I'm going to be teaching you guys is we're going to be looking at sketching, we're going to be looking at extruding, how to make solids, and fillets and chamfers, because that's what I like to do a lot. None of this may make sense to you. That's okay. Even if you don't have Fusion 360, that is also okay. This is what we're going to be doing in the after we go through the basics. Whoopsie daisies. So first we'll go and make a new design. And first thing we want to do is create a sketch. So this little option right here, if you hover over it, it will say create a sketch. You can read through the little blurb that it gives you, but it's pretty self-explanatory. You want to create a sketch, you click that button. And what happens when whoopsies, let's just get rid of that. So as you saw, what happens when I click this, there will be 3 planes, the X, Y, and Z plane. So if you have any sort of basic Cartesian knowledge, you'll know like X, Y, Z, where they go. And for this first basic thing, we're not going to really worry about which plane we want to use. Either of them is fine for what we are going to do. So now we are in the sketch mode. We have a bunch of options that we can choose from. We can choose a line, make some fun stuff. You can do a rectangle, a circle, or you can have fun with Bezier curves. So for now, we're going to keep it simple. We'll just grab the rectangle tool and make a little rectangle. And you see we have 2 dimensions, 100 millimeters and 50 millimeters. What we can do if you don't want to eyeball it and you actually want to do specific dimensions, you can actually type in measurements you want by using the tab key, click enter, and it will make the rectangle for you. So that's the basics of sketching. Now we're going to be moving on to extruding. So what I did, so let me go back into Sketch. So what you can do is you can use this nifty little shortcut. It's the E button. And we're going to be going into extruding mode. So what this basically does is it helps you make a solid out of the sketch you made. So let's say I had a hole in the middle of my sketch. Let's create that right now. You'll see that it highlights everything outside of the circle. If I were to click E while having that highlighted, you'll see that it'll extrude everything except for the circle in the middle. If you, for some reason, wanted to extrude the circle as well, you would just click Shift, and it will become a whole rectangle. Easy peasy. So now we have ourselves a rectangular prism. Now let's say, instead of making the hole in the sketch like I did before, let's say you want to make a hole a different way. So we'll create a sketch, and now you can choose any of the planes to create your sketch on instead of the 3 Cartesian planes that I saw before. So we'll choose this plane. Actually, no, we'll choose this one. Never mind. Whoopsies. Create sketch. Now we can do it. So now it will default to this side of the rectangle. You just create your center diameter circle or whatever shape you want. Have fun with it. Click on it, press E, and you can cut through your shape. If you want to make it longer, then you would drag it the other way. You can drag it into the middle. The world's your oyster. So now we have a basic part. And fillets and chamfers, it's not as important as the basics that I just taught you. It just helps me make my things look pretty, and I like making things look pretty, so I'm going to teach you how to make things look pretty as well. So I should be explaining this. Okay, fillet is basically just rounding off the edges. So as you saw what I was doing before, I was clicking the edges of the ones I wanted to round, and there'll be this arrow, kind of like how the extrude tool was as well. You can drag it, you can move it every which way. This is the same thing. And you can see the more I drag it, the more rounded everything becomes. Yeah, just be careful because it might just break Fusion. That's okay, just drag it back and everything will be good to go. So there we are. We have our first little part. So now we're going to be going on to something a bit more complicated. It's a little thing from some weird indie game. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's called Pokemon. It's kind of... I don't think many people have heard of it. It's kind of a stupid game. I'm kidding. I love Pokemon. So this will be the finished product in the end. Let me just show you the render as well, just because rendering is cool. So those who have used Blender, this might be a bit familiar to you, making actual photo renditions that you can export and show as cool little images you can impress your friends with. But we are going to be starting from scratch here. So I'm going to not save that part because I don't need it. I'm going to create a new design. If you want, you can do a preliminary save, Control S, cool Pokeball thing. So let us start. So the first thing you might want to do is you want to create the sphere part of the Pokeball. So what you might think is the best play is creating an actual sphere. So I'll go to create sphere. You would click which plane you want it to be on. Again, it doesn't matter, it's a sphere. It's the same on every single side. And you can just enlarge. It just appears, you can drag it, make it as big or as small as you want. But if you recall from my model, we need to put this black little thing over here. And we can't really do that if we just have a giant ball here, or it would be very difficult to do it. So we're going to do something else. We are going to delete the sphere. Get rid of one of those sketches. Get rid of the other one as well. So create a sketch again. And we're going to make something else. So take your line tool. You can start from the origin. Doesn't really matter where you start from. It's just if you start from the origin, it will be a lot easier to keep track of. So we will make our line. We'll make a little arch. Actually, let's start with the other line. 75 millimeters is what I am going to do. And we will make a little, what do you call these? Half of a hemisphere, quarter sphere. That sounds right. So what I use to create this arch, called a 3-point arc, you create 2 endpoints, and then you can drag the arch as you please. So you might be asking, if you're following along, what are we going to do with this? We are going to do a fun little thing called a revolution. So let us go to, where did it go? Revolve. So what this does is it takes a face and revolves it around a certain axis. So the face we want to revolve, the one we just made, this little quarter sphere, we want to select an axis. So you can either choose one of the planes, or we can choose this line right here, and it will make a whole hemisphere for us instead of us having to cut it in half. You could have done that as well, but I wanted to show you the cool revolution thingy, so this is what we're doing. So click OK, and we have a hemisphere. So you might want to, I don't know, make it a working Pokeball in the future. You might want to add some cool hinges, make it a thing where you can actually store something in it. So let's just start with that. We want to do something called, if I can find it, we want to do a shell. And what a shell does is it basically just hollows the entire part out. So you can see nothing here. If I click on the face, boom, there you go. Pretty cool. So if you want to make the walls a bit thinner, drag the little arrow, you know the drill, click OK, and there we go. We have the top half of our Pokeball. So not necessarily like this yet. We still have a bit to go. So let's get started on the little black band thing here. That will be the most complicated part to do. And then afterwards, we can just replicate this little sphere thingy for the bottom. You know the drill. So let's create a sketch. And what we want to do is we want to make it so that the band is the same diameter as the inner, what do you call this? The inner diameter of this little shell thingy. So we'll click that. And you can see it flipped to the bottom of the hemisphere. So I could draw nicely on it. There's not going to be any disruptions. It's nice like that. We're going to get the center diameter circle, start at the origin. And we're just going to really eyeball this. Most of this is just going to be eyeball for me. You might want to make some actual measurements like a good little engineer. Not me. I'm a computer scientist. We don't do that stuff. So as you can see, once I made that circle, we have ourselves a little ring around the bottom. What we want to do now, we want to extrude that out. And you can see we have a little band spanning the area. So again, bring it as high or as down as you'd like. World's your oyster. And what we're going to do is over here, you see the little operations tab in the extrude window. We have new body, join, cut, intersect, new component. What we want to do is have a new body. And what that does is it makes a body separate to, whoopsies. Go back there. There we go. We want to make a new body separate to the top hemisphere, because what happens if you click join, it will basically join as one body, which we don't really want if we want to modify it more. So we'll do new body. And you can see that these two are separate entities. If I were to do join, it's still one thing, but you get my point. You'll see in the future. So now we have that. So again, we're still not there. Let's try something else. In order for there to be an actual Pokeball, we need to have a bottom half. So what we're going to do, we go to modify, move/copy, and we want to click on the top hemisphere. So if I were to have joined that extrusion, it would have selected this blue band as well, and we didn't want that. We just want to deal with the top hemisphere. And if we were to move it, this little, what do you call it? All these little arrows, they'll help you move everything, side, rotate. But we don't want to just move it. We want to create a copy of it, which we will do by creating copy or ticking off the checkbox for create copy over here. So now if I were to move it, creates a copy. Pretty straightforward. We can move up and down, or what we can do is click this area, this little band over here, automatically, not very automatically, but almost automatically goes and lines itself up nicely with the height. So let's just eyeball that a bit more. Make sure that's lined up properly. There we are. We have a Pokeball. Not really. We still need one more thing. A little water break. We need the little button as well. And you can see we also need a little opening. So we will get started with that. So one thing you'll find in Fusion 360 that might be a little frustrating, probably the same with Blender, SolidWorks, all that stuff. You can't necessarily create a sketch on a curved area. It just won't let you, and it's kind of infuriating. There are plugins and other things that can help you cast a sketch onto the surface. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Most of the time it just pisses you off. So we're going to do something else. We're going to look at the offset plane option here. And what that does is it takes one of the original planes, X, Y, Z, and it lets you make a plane that's a bit offset from its original position. So I'll show you what that means in a sec. So we're going to choose, we're going to choose this one over here. And that gives us an arrow. So we will just move it. And you can see it creates a plane not at the center, at the origin. You can move it back, front, any which way. And we will want to set it just at the edge of our sphere here. So if you remember, or if you were paying attention to my dimensions, you'll see that I made mine a 75 millimeter radius. So you can see, fits up quite nicely there. You can make it a bit farther, a bit not as far, doesn't really matter. I'll do it 1 millimeter ahead just so I can see what I'm doing. So click OK. Now we have this weird orange square in front of our Pokeball. You can see we can click on it. So if we do create a sketch, you will see that we have our 3 orange squares at the origin, our X plane, our Y plane, and our Z plane. We also have this square that wasn't originally there before. So now we can click on it, and it will let us create a sketch just outside of this Pokeball. So something like this. And you can see how that appears right there. Now, if I were to just take that away, and if I were to just create a sketch over there, it's in the middle of the Pokeball. We don't really want that. So that is why we use our construct planes, because let's say we had a solid, like this thing wasn't hollow. We don't want to cut in through the middle. That would just be bad. So that's why we use our offset planes, so that does not happen. So create sketch, offset plane. So I want to create the little circle thing over here. So let us start with that. Actually, scratch that. Let me do something first. What we want to do so we don't cut into this thing, we want to move it aside. And this is where the join/new body stuff comes into play. If I were to join it again, it would have moved everything attached to it, which we don't want to do. So we're just going to move it off to the side. This will make sense in a bit. So let's go back to our construct plane. 75. And now we can do what I originally intended to do. So if you have the Pokeball at the origin like mine, you would want to create it a bit down so it's in the middle of these two, or in the middle of the gap between these two hemispheres. So 40 millimeters should be okay. I can't see you guys' opinions, so I'm going to assume that you guys are on the same boat because I am always right. That is a complete lie. Please don't quote me on this. We're going to cut in. So in order to do that, you just drag. If it doesn't automatically cut for some reason, just go to Operation, click the fancy little cut, and it will do it yourself, or it will do it itself. There we go. Now we have the little arch inside of the two hemispheres. So now, the most difficult part of this Pokeball, I'd say, is making the little buttons, because it's just a bunch of arches and curves, really infuriating, but you guys will get to suffer with me, so everything will be fine. So we want to create another offset, 75, make this 80, just to allow for extra tolerance. Create a sketch, click on our offset plane. We're going to be working here. So what we want to do is we want to create that little divot sort of thing. I don't know what to call it, but I'm just going to call it the sphere or the circle part of it. We're going to get our center diameter circle, place it at the center of our little band, and let's take a look at what I created, or what the size of my little sketch was before. So you can see there's not really a dimension that will show me. If I click on it, it will just say, actually no, it will say down at the bottom right. What you could also do for more accurate results, or if you're trying to measure something that isn't as simple as a circle, if you highlight the thing you're trying to get and you click D, it will show on the actual part itself. And if you wanted to change it yourself, 30, click on it again, too big, click on it again, 40. So we know that our little circle is 40 millimeters. So with that knowledge, we're going to recreate it here, 40 millimeters, extrude. We don't want to cut into it. We want to make a joined version, so it kind of represents something like this, kind of like a scuffed ring. You wouldn't really give it to your fiance or anything. So we have something like this. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to fix it and make sure it's all curved. Because as you remember me talking about how much I hate drawing on curves, you don't really get that arch as you would probably be hoping if you were to draw normally or sculpt it yourself. So we're going to fix that by creating a sketch. We will, how good are we on time? We're good on time. We'll click on this face over here, the top of a ring, center diameter circle, and we are going to make a circle that is the same diameter as the inner ring. Something like that. So you see we have our ring. Now we're going to create another one. Whoopsies. I have to line it up with that. And you'll be surprised at this one. We'll create another one. So we have 2 separate rings. The reason for this is we're going to be doing something probably very scuffed, but this is an intro course, so I don't care. We're going to extrude, click the outer face, click the inner face, so both are selected. We are going to click on our operations, click cut. I'm going to drag down. So you can see it creates a flush plane that isn't like sticking out from the bench too much. But you can see only half of it, so we got to fix it. So we're going to go to direction, one side. We can go to 2 sides instead. So it adds another dimension, and we can drag the opposite way to cut the rest of the part. You can see we have our little arch sphere kind of thing with the correct curve. So we're getting somewhere. Now what we want to do, we finished our little black band piece. We want to finish the button. So as you've probably guessed, we're going to do the same garbage that we've been doing before. So construct plane, drag it out. Let's bring that to 75. Yep, and you can see still flush. Create sketch. You're probably wondering why I have to create a new offset plane every time. It's because Fusion really likes to just get rid of your planes after you use them. It's really, really inconvenient, but what can you do? So what we're going to do, we want to find the center of our little circle band thing. Eyeball it again. I'm going to go with 30 millimeters. You can see we have our little sketch. So extrude, bring it down. We don't want to cut it. We're going to join. We have our little button thing. But, whoopsies. No, I should make that a new body, actually. For reasons in the rendering process, you'll see. So you can see, like our problem before, it's a straight line. We don't want it straight. We want it curved. So we're going to go through the whole debacle again, create our sketch, grab our circle. So again, eyeball it to see what height you would want your little button to be. Create your little ring. And then cut through. And there you go. We have the first part of our little button. It's also a good thing to save every now and then. If it crashes, you don't want to lose everything. Trust me, I know. I've coded like hundreds of lines and it crashed on me and I wanted to cry. So save all the time. If there's one thing you learn from this workshop, save. Control S is your friend. So last part we want to do, we want another little button. So same, what do you call it? Song and dance. Construct plane, 75 offset. We want 75? No, we want this a bit farther out, actually. Let's put this up to 85. Yes. We'll create our sketch. Make our little button. Extrude. We want the new body as well. Be mindful for this as well. It can cut straight through here. I made the mistake of not checking before I extruded, but that's okay. I can always fix that in the past. Not the past, in the future. So if you ever want to go back to an old step, want to change the sketch or change how far you extruded something, we can just click on the step itself. And you can see if I click on the extrusions, it will highlight the particular thing I extruded, so you're not just flapping around. So let's go ahead and fix this. 9mm seems to work. There we go. So now create another sketch. Make our ring. Eyeball it again. Select our ring. Two sides. Cut. Bang, bang. There we go. So now we have our buttons. So in order to make them a little more rounded, like I did over here, remember when I talked about filleting and how it's my friend? We're going to be using it. So we will click Fillet in the Modify tab. Select the ends of the two little button tab things and just drag the button until you find a thickness that suits your fancy. Gonna make it something like this. Just because it looks nice. Something like this. Okay. And there we go. A nice little Pokeball button. So now what we want to do is we want to connect these. So move. Actually, I have made a mistake. Let's go back and fix it. Actually, no, never mind. We don't need to fix it. Everything's fine. So we want to move our band back to our original hemispheres. So you can see if I click it, because we made these two new bodies, they won't immediately be selected. So what we want to do is shift, click, click. There we go. So for this, we don't want to create a new copy because we only have one band. We're not making two Pokeballs. So we'll just drag it back. You can see it's kind of hard to align. But with enough perseverance, you can do anything. So you can see we have our little Pokeball. Now, it's not the same color as this yet. So that is what we are going to do to make it look like an actual Pokeball. So this is just a design phase. We're going to be going to the render phase now. Rendering, everybody loves rendering. So in this segment, you can just create, or you can just add whatever materials you want to the surfaces of your parts, make them look nice and shiny, make them as pictures, send them to your friends, put them on social media, all that fun stuff. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to Appearance, and you'll see we have this nice little window with a bunch of different textures that we can use. So we have fabrics. You can just click it and drag it, and it will give you the texture that it says it has. So you can see, kind of like a leathery little Pokeball. We want to make it kind of like the ones we see in the animes. So I am going to go to Paint. Let's go to Metallic. We have our nice little metallic materials. So I want to take the black and paint the band first. You can see, well, not right at this moment, but you can see that it's a bit nice and shiny. Now we want to deal with the first one. You can see that the red is on the top, white is on the bottom. So let's go ahead and do that. Appearance. Now the white is on the bottom. There you go. And the buttons themselves are white as well. Now, if we joined the parts when we were extruding them, you would not have been able to individually paint all of these yourselves. It would have just dyed the entire thing red or black or white. So this is why we want new bodies for each of the components. And here we go. we got ourselves a Pokeball. Looks pretty cool. If you were following along, you have yourself a new Pokeball. If you weren't following along, or if you got stuck, this workshop is always available. In the future, we're going to put it on the DSC YouTube, right? Or we're going to have it in the archives. In the CS Hub Discord, we're putting it there.
That's
And
correct. It'll be available
Okay.
later on.
All right, cool beans. Sorry, I was waiting for somebody to answer. And yeah, it will be available for you to look at unless you just don't care about me and want to look at somebody better explaining things. That's also cool. And you can see, kind of similar. And there we go. If you want to just render it and save it as a PNG or a JPEG, we are going to go to, which one was it? Nope, not that one. That has a lot of particle effects that are definitely going to lag on my computer if I use a lot of it. So we're not going to use that. We can just capture an image instead. That's a lot easier. So cool, Pokeball image. We can either save to a project in the cloud or save to my computer. I'm going to save to my computer, save, and I will have a picture. I'm not going to open my file explorer for reasons, but you'll be able to see if you have been following along. So that's pretty much going to be it on my end for the workshop. Thank you for listening. If you have been following, you're amazing. I love you. Do we have any questions regarding the workshop?
Yeah, so there seems to be a question from Steve. He's asking, how did you render them all together? Because he thought they were all separate bodies. I think he was referring the part when you were just started the rendering process.
The rendering process, like how did I render all the parts together even though I was talking about new bodies versus...
Yes, that's the part, yeah.
Okay, so rendering, basically it doesn't care about the new bodies versus joined bodies. It just renders whatever is in the design that we have. So if I have like 10 million parts strewn about, they're not connected at all, they're still going to be rendered the same way. The only reason I differentiated between joined bodies and new bodies is because of the design aspects. It doesn't matter in the rendering aspect at all. Does that make sense? All right, I'm going to assume it makes sense. Any other questions?
We got the thank you from Steve.
All right, you're welcome, Steve. All right, well, this is going to be it for my workshop. Again, thank you for following along. If you want to take a look at this again, come to the CS Hub Discord or take a look in the yuHacks server, and you'll be able to see it again. And if you have any questions, I'm also in the yuHacks Discord. Just send me a ping in the CS Hub channel.
Thank you so much, Samantha. That was a really cool workshop. If I ever want to make a Pokeball again, I'll definitely follow your workshop again.
All right, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so thank you everyone for tuning in. So all the workshops will be recorded and be available later on for you to watch. So that's the end of the workshop for this one. Please join us for the next one, which is going to be an introduction to Chrome Web Extensions led by Jason and Shafin from CS Hub. Thank you, everyone. See you there. Thank you again.
Bye-bye.
Bye.